You're listening to a new episode of The Brave Technologist. This one features Luca Schnetzler, a 25-year-old entrepreneur with a notable career in tech and e-commerce. After honing his skills in direct-to-consumer sales at Ring, he launched his own successful e-commerce venture. Today, Luca is the CEO of Pudgy Penguins, a cutting-edge IT company that integrates innovative technology and creative content to redefine the digital landscape. In this episode, we discussed first edition collections and how that's changed IP, bridging the gap from online collectibles to offline products in big box retailers like Walmart, advice for young entrepreneurs who want to build businesses at the intersection of tech, creativity, and IP, and the abstract consumer L2 and how it will help scale consumer adoption. And now for this week's episode of The Brave Technologist. Luca, welcome to The Brave Technologist. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing well. I've been really looking forward to this. Why don't we start off kind of set the table a bit for the audience? Tell us a little bit about what you're doing with Pudgy Penguins and kind of the journey that got you here.
Yeah, so Pudgy Penguins is looking to accomplish two goals. I think the first goal we're looking to accomplish is we want to become the face and the mascot for crypto, which I think we're slowly but surely becoming. And I think that will kind of be concrete any day here for I think a majority of crypto users. And the other side of it is we want to be the face of penguins around the world. So when you think penguins, I want you to think Pudgy Penguins. And ultimately, I think these two missions are driving to probably our bigger mission, which is a part of the Igloo's mission, which is like, how do we bring people on chain in a way that is not predicated on price going up or price going down? And so that's at least the purpose of Pudgy. I think my story starts, I kind of grew up bouncing around guest bedroom to guest bedroom, home to home with my mom and my brother for about 10 years, settled down in Los Angeles when I was a teenager. Dropped out of high school when I was 16 to help my mom pay the bills. Got my first job at a tech startup called Ring. When I was 18, I bought an online course that taught me how to sell things online. Within 12 months of watching that course, I found product market fit on my e-commerce business and changed my life and the rest of the people around me's life. I then went to monetize social influence. So I built brands around creators. And then I went to become the CMO and second largest shareholder of North America's fastest growing toy company, which is a company called Gel Blaster. And 2.5 years ago, I bought the Pudgy Penguins for $2.5 million under this guise that we were going to build the next generation of brand, become crypto's mascot, and ultimately be the face of penguins around the world. So that's the very, very, very short version. You'd be surprised, but the longer version is pretty detailed. But that's how we got here.
That's awesome. It's kind of like the perfect mix to do what you guys are doing. There's some things that seem a little bit different, right? Like with the approach for Pudgy, or maybe it just might seem different to the audience a little bit, right? Like we've seen projects kind of take their NFT and then do something else with that NFT. Like I've seen something like Pudgy puzzles and things like that. Like maybe we can get a little bit into the weeds, because a lot of people, I feel, they see an NFT and they think, okay, it's just a JPEG that's on a blockchain, right? But like, what is different about what you guys are doing on the IP side with Pudgy than that people might not necessarily be aware of?
So the NFT mechanism is an alignment mechanism between brand and participant and basically early believer. So I think, I want the audience listening to, if you're not familiar with NFTs or maybe have a bad interpretation of NFTs as to kind of what transpired 3-4 years ago, this idea that NFTs are actually what I think, digital collectibles on steroids, which have a slew of pros that I think regular collectibles don't. And so from a traditional perspective, I mean, these collectibles have no spoofing issues, no inauthenticity issues, no friction when buying or selling, no insurance issues, no storage issues. You know exactly how much of one there is. Like there's no room for misinterpretation. And so for those reasons, I think they're just better collectibles outside of the fact that you can't, physically touch it. But I would argue that wearing it as a profile picture is probably more impactful than being able to touch it, in your bedroom, or in your office, right? And so that's probably one side of the spectrum. The other side of the spectrum, and where things have to get really exciting, is this idea of alignment. And so, naturally, I think first edition collectors are aligned with a brand success in a super meaningful way. And these are first edition collectibles that, because they're digital and because they're have this awesome technology and this way to kind of integrate into different parts of the ecosystem, you can kind of open up a lot of different doors. And so in one scenario, you can kind of open up the door and give people licensing rights and the ability to kind of create and leverage the IP. On one side of the spectrum, there's this idea that, you can actually build a brand quicker and better while other people are kind of building different facets of the brand and kind of marching into one direction. There's another idea that like I can license the IP directly from holders themselves, right? And so this idea that I'm making a toy and putting it into Walmart and Target rather than you having to go make your own product, I will bring you in on the upside depending on if I select your character or not, and then you can get a royalty in perpetuity. So this idea that it's kind of a reinvention of the IP business, but this idea that first edition collectors and first edition believers can now participate in the success of a brand, I think is really exciting. And so it's a reinvention. Right now, I think IP businesses are basically brand and consumer. And with Pudgy Penguins, I think it's the first time in the history of IP that you now have a new relationship, which is brand, participant, and then consumer. And the participants are really the early believers, the first edition collectors, in which you can identify, through these profile pictures and these digital JPEGs.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I think that's something that like the Pudgy, like the community element of it, right? Like is you guys have one of the most diehard communities in crypto, and it has this like the art's right to where it appeals beyond just kind of the everyday like crypto degen, right? But like you see it like in how the community kind of supports the efforts of holders in the community when they're trying to do these things. It's something I've seen like we worked with like Andrew Forte, a bunch of other folks, and Drew and a bunch of people that are out there doing things, and you see the community rally behind that. Like I think like that's something that you don't really see a lot of outside of crypto communities in general, and it's a super cool thing to see. I mean, how do you kind of in your role maintain a balance between creative and the tech side, or is there even a balance there? Like, how much are you guys like kind of like weighing where can we take this on the innovation side versus like what's the next thing we're going to do with the artwork? That kind of a balance.
Yeah, I think so. So me as like the CEO, it's my tone to set the vision. So I think it's really important for us above all else. I told the team this, like, I don't see a world where the NFT and the crypto side of the business fails and the IP succeeds. I think they're either going to both succeed tremendously or they're both going to fail miserably. And so far you've seen tremendous success. And so I think I've been in both sides, right? The NFT does really well. The other product lines do really well. The product lines do really well. The NFT does really well. And so it's been really symbiotic in that sense. So far, it's been proven true. On the other side of the spectrum, I think how we kind of look at this business is, again, it's held by Igloo. So Igloo is this holding company. Igloo contributes to a blockchain called Abstract and then owns Pudgy Penguins. And so the whole mission of Igloo, right, which is the holding company in which we kind of sit, is to push on-chain adoption. Like that is our mission above all else. And we actually believe IP is one of the best ways to do it because IP can be grown, it can be scaled. And ultimately, I think blockchain is super taboo and super intimidating. And there's no better first touch point for somebody to get familiar with being on-chain than a cute little Pudgy, right? So I think like that is the root of what we're trying to accomplish. So it's up to the rest of the team to figure out like the two different facets. Like how does tech support the growth of the brand and ultimately, leverage, the growth of the brand to make a positive blockchain experience. And obviously it's the responsibility of creative to make the most lovable, penguin that permeates through time and culture and through, different groups of people in the best way possible. So, I have really just set the vision and keep people on course. And, I'll be frank, I've got a team of rock stars rocking with me on this endeavor here for the last 2.5 years. And they're the ones that kind of put the pieces together to make sure that we're kind of ebb and flowing in the right direction. But if you were to ask me again, like it goes down to, I think, our core ethos, the Igloo. Like if I were to pick the two, I'm going to pick the crypto one, the crypto and the blockchain and the technology side, because I think it's I think it's the gap that needs to be filled the most today. And so IP actually today is like on a cataclysmic downturn, meaning like no new IP has been. So, this also reigns true for IP, but I think because we started in crypto, our origins are in crypto, our responsibility and our loyalty is to this industry. Though I do think IP needs a saving grace just as much as I think crypto needs a saving grace, especially from a mass and a consumer perspective. If you were to put give me an ultimatum, I'm going to pick the technology side. But obviously they're symbiotic and it's kind of like yin and yang. They both need to win. They both need to be positive experiences for user to win.
Totally. Has there been anything like that you've seen that's come from the community on the tech side where you're like, damn, I didn't think about that, or that was like a really interesting use case that we didn't consider that we're going to look further into? Like, how much of this stuff is coming like organically up from the community, and how much versus how much of this is coming from your guys from Igloo itself?
So my job is to really harness the hive mind that is the community and really put the muscle behind it. So, our whole Walmart and Target toys which you can go buy now actually all come with a QR code. When you scan that QR code, you input an email and a password. You're given a custody wallet that you're then asked to redeem 3 to 5 NFTs through a guest experience. That whole flow and conceptualization of that idea was done on what we call an inner igloo, which is our bi-weekly conversations that we have. That basically are, where we sync up between holders and myself and the rest of the team. And so that was a perfect example of like that gap being bridged and that not being conceptualized for my brain. Another one is OCAP Games, which is making the Pudgy Penguins TCG. Think of like Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering, kind of like an online physical kind of merger. That's a huge industry, a competitive industry, but the game is so fun. The product is so exciting. And so many of the holders are so passionate about that. We have a huge Magic the Gathering and poker community within Penguins. Things like that are super exciting. Obviously, you mentioned Pudgy Puzzles and other people making products. Like if you go on Amazon, majority of those products you see on Amazon are community made. But specifically on the technology side, I think OCAP Games and what we did with Pudgy World are really two great examples.
And just to zoom out a touch, because I think that, a lot of the audience might not necessarily be aware of like how some of this works. So when you say you guys have biweekly calls, right? Like, so that involves like Igloo and then like anybody that goes and buys and holds one of these NFTs, right? So like they could have no affiliation with Igloo whatsoever other than being like part of this community, right?
Yeah, so it's a token gated chat. And again, it goes back to like this reinvention of IP where it's like branded participant, right? You hold the NFT, you're a participant. You can come up on stage. We have those conversations. You know exactly what I'm doing. And to be frank, like a lot of people like claim they do things like this, but I think we've really set the bar and the North Stars to like what it means to build with a group, because quite literally half of this company's ideas has stemmed from those conversations. Like they probably are single-handedly one of the most meaningful Web3 crypto conversations that you could have every 2 weeks. It's unparalleled, the conversations, the ideas that have stemmed from that. So it quite literally is us leaning into this participation model.
That's one of those things I really wanted to kind of get the point across here too, because I feel like, when you look at the tech landscape, there's a lot of like big tech world versus just a simple user, right? Like, and a lot of times that relationship gets kind of weird. But this is one of those things where like you're part of the community, you can really grow something new with it, and not only that, like, you guys give that direct access. Like there are not very many things like that in this world where you can actually like be part of a conversation, be giving value and inputs and have an influence on something like that. So, something I hope that the audience here like takes away. Like we do this too at the back community where we have like these open calls every week. And I think that that's something that like there's so much just noise around the crypto space that it's one of those things that is really key to the crypto space is this idea of community and like direct engagement, but it gets not as much noise, like attention as it should, I think, like, but it's super cool to see you guys are like, people are actually like building things on this. Like you guys are actually like, like getting into Walmart. Like, I mean, that's like, how did that process work? Because I think you guys have really broken through in a way that, I mean, I've been in this space since 2016 and I haven't really, it's rare to see something like what you guys have been able to do where you guys got into this like mega retailer, right? With products that actually involve real world crypto utility for a broader audience. This is kind of like the goal everybody talks about, right? But like you guys are actually doing it. So maybe you could like share a little bit about like kind of the genesis of that, if you don't mind, and how it kind of made its way there just for folks. I think it's something people might be really interested to hear more about.
Yeah, of course. So there's really two compelling crypto native things about these products that are in these distributors. And I think they play into how we got there. I think the first one is every toy that you see that's on shelf is actually a licensed NFT from a holder, in which every time one of those toys sells, they get a royalty in perpetuity that gets paid out every January. So this is like a really beautiful story. This idea that like, hey, I'm a first edition collector. I took your NFT, I licensed it from you, and now they're getting a royalty in perpetuity. never been done before, first of its kind.
Awesome.
Right? On the other side of it, you have this idea that was stemmed from this inner igloo, which is this Pudgy world integration. Hey, when you buy this toy, you unlock these NFTs, through this like really seamless Web 2 style experience. And that gives you, ability to customize your forever Pudgy Penguin, et cetera. And so I think these two things are really innovative from a narrative and also a technology perspective. And when pitching Walmart, so, Gel Blaster was one of Walmart's best-selling products, for 2 years, basically. And that was my endeavor before Pudgy Penguins. And so I had a really great relationship with them, right? We came in, they didn't take a chance on us. I told them like, hey, Gel Blaster is going to be the biggest, best thing ever. They took a chance, turned out to sell $200 million worth of product in about 2 years there. So they kind of believe what we had said. When we came to them and said, hey, look, like this is the story that we're trying to tell, and I want you to be at the forefront of this. Ultimately, they actually didn't take the chance that I wanted them to take. And it wasn't until we had like a huge success at Amazon that they realized like, look, there was really something special here. We basically sold we sold out of Amazon product basically in 2 days. We were number one across like all different categories there. And that's when kind of the floodgates opened. And ultimately, we were in a pallet program in Q4, basically, one of maybe 6 pallets that are in like the middle of the store, probably the most prime real estate that any person can get in any consumer product good. We basically had 90 days to pull up to basically distribute 2,000 pallets and 2,000 Walmarts with about like 400 units of each product on each pallet. And we got that basically from purchase order to in their stores within 90 days. And the rest is history. I think we ended up selling out. We sold like 80% of those units, which I think was like 800,000 or 750,000 units at the time. We ended up doing that in about 2.5 months. They ended up doing a reorder. And by the time this airs, we're going to announce that we're going to be in Walmart through 2025. So I think the success is just continuously steamrolling through. And that opened the door to Target and Hot Topic and Smith's and Big W. And we're at about 10,000 retail doors a day.
Wow, that's huge. I mean, especially given, where market sentiments go and how like, you're doing all of this while crypto's been kind of in a rough patch too. I mean, like how involved I'm just curious, like with, you gave a really good high level on like kind of the flow, right? For that customer, to go through when they buy it and QR code, all that stuff. Like how involved was Walmart in that process? Like, were they giving you guys feedback or were they like concerned at all or how is that part of the relationship managed?
I ran the approval once. They trusted the process and they let us cook, man. I think that's what I really respected about them. They were not micromanaging that process whatsoever.
That's fantastic. That's awesome. I mean, like, I think this is just one of those things I wish more people heard about. Like, so I'm really stoked you're here telling us about it. But I mean, like, where do you see, like, okay, so through 2025 is huge, all these new retailers, like, are there any other directions where the Penguins are going that, like, what's next for you guys, like, on the horizon?
I think for us, it's gaming, movies, and TV. I think those are like the next big cracks to be a franchise. And then that would be like from a Web 2 perspective. And from a Web 3 perspective, it's really leaning into, I think, if you understand the Pudgy Penguin community, you would know that there isn't 3 better communities in crypto. Some of the brightest, most affluent, most powerful people in crypto wear this as their PFP. Some of the nicest, kindest people, wear this as their PFP. And it's just like an army of diverse, super penguins kind of marching in a direction. So from an ecosystem perspective, we're leveraging that to grow our blockchain. I think ultimately I want people to build the way that Pudgy Penguins has been built for the last 2.5 years. But, I want that to be aligned. I want that to be ecosystem aligned. I want that to benefit the ecosystem. I want that to benefit the holders. And ultimately, that's where Abstract came in. And then from a Web 2 perspective, it's movies, it's TV, it's partnerships, collaborations, and gaming. And we've pretty much got, I think one of the biggest headlines in crypto on the movie and TV side. I think we've got, 2 gaming products, one in Pudgy World and one in Pudgy Party that will release within the next 6 months, both of them. I think they'll be blockbuster successes. And then we have some brand partnerships and collaborations that I think are going to blow everyone's socks off. So I think between that little package, we've got a lot in the pipeline and a lot for people to be excited about.
That's awesome. I got to ask too, like, where did the idea of the penguin come into play? Like, how did that all kind of come about? Did you just like penguins, or where did it come from?
Well, remember, Luke, I bought Pudgy Penguins, so I was actually a disgruntled holder. So for those of you who are not familiar, it's actually a really interesting story that I think is worth mentioning for 60 seconds.
Yeah, please break it down. I love this. I love this.
Pudgy Penguins was one of the 3 NFT projects in 2021 that really kicked off the narrative around NFTs. Those 3 projects were CryptoPunks, Bored Apes, and Pudgy Penguins. Now, Pudgy Penguins was started by a bunch of 18 and 19-year-olds in their college dorm basement. They weren't entrepreneurs. They had no business experience. They barely knew how to cook a steak medium rare. I mean, that's, they're young guys. I don't blame them. And while CryptoPunks and Bored Apes continued to do their thing, right, go up in price, in this case, they were basically a straight shot to 100 Ethereum, Pudgy Penguins, after the first 2 months of its hype, lost its pizzazz because of basically the operational negligence of these kids that were running it. I was a huge Pudgy Penguin holder. And rather than complaining and doing all the things that I think most disgruntled holders do, I realized I could step up to the plate and put my money where my mouth is and show them how it's done. And I also was looking at the success of Bored Ape and the success of CryptoPunks, and I thought to myself, well, there's nothing there that I think we don't have, and there's nothing that I think they're doing that I couldn't do better. And so the kind of deal came around where it was like, look, 4 or 5 months after Pudgy Penguin's conception, my bid for 750 Ethereum, which ended up closing about $2.5 million, went through. I then bought the project basically 3 months after that bid got accepted. After that bid got accepted, basically a week later, the NFT and crypto market went into the worst bear market it's seen in a very long time, black swan after black swan. And then we basically, ever since that moment, have been the highest performing NFT project by an order of magnitude based on the things that we've kind of achieved. So still a long ways to go. I believe that we're going to take Pudgy Penguins further than any other NFT project has been in the past. And obviously, but it's going to take some time and got a lot more building to do. So we'll get it done here. But, that's the story and a little bit of the history of the Pudgy Penguin.
And so you guys basically bought out every NFT that was available, right? Like, is that kind of how that worked?
No, we just bought the assets. We bought the trademark. Okay. We bought what the contract address is that held the NFTs and got the royalties. But because all of the NFTs were sold to the public, basically all the NFTs were sold to the public. I maybe got 20 or 30 NFTs from the previous team.
Awesome. No, that's cool. I think is there any AI angles that you see around Pudgy or anything like that? I'm just got to ask, given how AI is kind of booming and everybody's trying to put it everywhere.
I had an idea of a homework or helper. So this idea that you bought the penguin on the shelf of Walmart, scanned the QR code, got your forever penguin, and then had a homework or AI helper. The problem is one of my guys said, look, we're not AI guys and we wouldn't even know where to start. But this idea that, there was a 0.001% chance that this toy went to go tell a kid to kill themselves. The worst headline for us is Walmart removing everything off shelf and throwing it away because, our AI penguin told somebody to hurt himself. So we scratch that to the side. Probably not for today. I know a bunch of really interesting AI projects around the Pudgy Penguin IP are being built on Abstract. But other than that, nothing AI that we're directly building.
That's super interesting. Yeah, I really interesting perspective because I think you guys are one of the few where you've got that, you're hitting that mass market ring in a different way. On that point, have you guys seen an inflow of new people into the space that maybe have bought this through Walmart and are now have the crypto bug, so to speak? Are you guys seeing more and more new kind of people coming to the community as a result of some of this distribution?
Totally. There's been tons of stories, right? But it's important to note that I haven't turned that lever on, right? So I believe conversion is a process, not an action. And so I'm a direct response guy. So intuitively, that's just naturally not true. I mean, technically, conversion is an action. But I think for this business and kind of our approach, I'm not treating it like an action. I'm treating it like a process. Right now, I want to be the most familiar, credible, and trusted character on the internet. And when that happens, right, then I can make the direct conversion to crypto user. Now, people go and explore and they hear the story. And when they take a deep dive into the brand, they find that origin with or without me, explaining it to them. So that's always exciting. We've seen a ton of people come into the community based off of, their own personal deep dive. But I think from our perspective, like we haven't turned the jets of like the brand really taking this huge user base of millions of people and converting them in, because I don't think it's the right time. I think there's going to be a moment in time where that time is right, but I don't think that moment is now.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense, and it is interesting. I love hearing because like in a lot of ways, Brave's in kind of a similar place where we have a product that doesn't necessarily like there's a crypto cohort of users using it, sure, but like you're also dealing with like your neighbor or somebody else that is using it and kind of introducing them in certain stages just doesn't make a lot of sense in a certain way. But one other thing too, like a lot of our audience are developers or entrepreneurial minded people that might be kind of breaking into this space. As somebody like yourself, who not only is kind of broken in on the tech side, like through, Ring and all these other innovations you're doing now, but also like on that commerce side, right? Like, which is so hard to kind of do really well at. Like, what advice do you have for young entrepreneurs, like, or developers that might have that kind of bug around the entrepreneurial spirit that they want to break out there? Like somebody just kind of starting out now, whether it's an IP or any, if you knew what you know now then, like what would you recommend or what advice would you give to somebody that's just starting?
Probably the three most important things that were meaningful for me in my entrepreneurial journey was probably the first, and these are chronological in how I learned them, so take this with a grain of salt. The first one was don't be the victim. I used to feel sorry for myself, and if I felt sorry for myself, I would have never gotten here in the first place. So stop playing the victim, I think, is one. Two, learn how to communicate, right? I think the most powerful tool in your toolbox is your voice. And whether you're in sales or, and now I'd probably go into my 2.5 point, which is like learn sales, learn how to sell, right? Because then it goes into my third point, which is like, I put an onus on marketing above all else, right? I'm a guy that's like, hey, you can build an amazing product. If you can't market it, like it doesn't matter. I know so many amazing product builders, but it starts and stops with marketing, and it starts with your ability to sell that product. Right. So, probably one, don't feel sorry for yourself. Two, learn how to communicate. 2.5, learn sales. 3, learn how to market. Marketing is your most important skill set in your entrepreneurial toolbox. Some may argue that, right? Like I have debate with my product friends and, other peers that are, building companies, but that's just my prerogative as an elite internet marketer. That's I'm a little biased.
Somehow gotten broken the crypto barrier into Walmart. I think people should would be smart to heed to that advice. I mean, but there's something else too, and I think like we've all kind of worked together a bit too between the communities like Brave and the Pudgies, like whether it's like on some of our house ads even like where we've had that in, and we've seen a lot of good feedback from there. But one thing that really does stand out working with you guys, there's just like an openness there around like trying things out and like experimenting and stuff like that, and I feel like you don't get that a lot. Often, when you're trying to collaborate with other people. And I think that's one of the things that really kind of makes you guys stand out too. And I'm sure it's helped drive a lot of the success too. And just that openness to like ideas or just, let's see, experiment or whatever too. And I think, folks, listen to what Luca's saying. It's awesome. And I think that, you guys are cooking with the right ingredients, and it's super exciting to see where this goes. I mean, we covered a lot today, and you've been super gracious with your time. Is there anything we didn't cover that you want our audience to know about?
Probably think the one that we didn't take too much of a deep dive into is just abstract. So, for those that are not familiar, I think this is the next big phase within the Igloo in terms of like where we're contributing our time and our energy. This idea that I think there's a huge open ocean within the space around who owns consumer and which infra layer is really the layer for consumer. So abstract is kind of self-explanatory in its naming convention. This idea that blockchain needs to be the back end, not the front end. We want to abstract all the blockchain layers, and ultimately we want to become the consumer chain. I think if I'm looking in crypto today, everyone's working on general purpose. Everyone's trying to be this infra for these next generation of economies. But I think if you capture consumers, you can kind of upsell and expand into that. And I think we're going to take a really unorthodox approach. So, obviously Pudgies are where they are. They're going to continue going in the right trajectory. I mean, we're confident of that. I think our entire business starts and stops with the success of that ecosystem. But if you want to get in on the ground level of something interesting, we're a team of winners. This is what we do. So I would love to see you guys and gals within the abstract ecosystem having some fun.
So is abstract just for some of the technical folks, right? Like, is it its own blockchain, or are you guys like bridging across other blockchains, or how does that work a little bit?
Yeah, so abstract's an Ethereum L2.
Okay,
it's
cool.
on the ZK stack. So obviously, we believe that ZK is the end game. I think the majority of L2s are on optimistic rollups, and ultimately, I think that's going to be a pivot that they're all going to make. It's not if, it's when. Ultimately, there's a couple things that we're working on that I think are really going to surprise the space. We announced Abstract Global Wallet, this idea of this unified, synchronistic wallet across, the entire platform and the ecosystem. I think it's something that's never been done before on a chain level. So we've got some really interesting technological features, a couple white papers that will be released from now until probably the end of November. So a couple really great tech updates here coming out shortly.
That's awesome, man. And I'm sure folks will be tuned into that. Where can people go to follow along with Igloo or Pudgies or what you're up to on socials?
I appreciate that. Yeah, give me a follow on all socials. Luca Netz, LucaNetz, at Pudgy Penguins on all socials, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. You won't regret it. Definitely put a smile to your face, and I'm confident you'll be sharing content around. And if you want to follow Abstract, it's at ABS on Instagram and at Abstract Chain on Twitter, and then the Igloo Inc. On all socials. So I appreciate you taking the time, Luke. Huge fan of Brave. Huge fan of everything you guys have been doing over there, and I think you and us, and maybe one or two others, I think are the only people really pushing consumer adoption on blockchain rails in a way that I think is unprecedented. So, keep up the good work over there. Yeah,
you too, man. Much appreciated. And love to have you all back too, as you guys are rolling out new things that you want people to know about. This is seriously one of these stories to follow, I think, in this space. And we've seen a lot of stories in this space. And so, thanks again, Luca. Really appreciate it. And love to have you back sometime. Take care, man.
Later.
Thanks for listening to the Brave Technologist podcast. To never miss an episode, make sure you hit follow in your podcast app. If you haven't already made the switch to the Brave browser, you can download it for free today at brave.com and start using Brave Search, which enables you to search the web privately. Brave also shields you from the ads, trackers, and other creepy stuff following you across the web.